Hi, everybody. This is Loren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. And with me today, I have Gisele Navarro from NeoMam. We're going to talk about content, links, and digital PR. Hey, Giselle, how's it going?
Hey, it's all good. How are you?
Good, good. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. I have been a fan of the work of NeoMam Studios for quite a while. I think you guys bridge that gap between like normal SEO content and art. So so it's really a pleasure to have you on, and I wanted to thank you for adjusting time zone wise, or thank us for adjusting time zone wise. This is the first time we've had a show at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. So we're gonna see how it goes because we want to test our time slots anyway from a performance perspective. But if you could introduce yourself to our listeners and audience, that'd be a great way to begin.
Okay, sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. So my name is Giselle. I am the CEO of NeoMam Studios. At NeoMam, we are a creative content agency. So we just create content for people to share online. And we hope that our content will be there for months and years to come and will continue to be shared. So that's our focus. And personally, I come from the world of link building. I started building links when I started using the internet. That was back in 1998, but I actually started getting paid for it in 2009. And since then, I think I've learned a lot, and I chose my path, which has been building links with content. And that's how I ended up at NeoMam, joining them as their head of outreach back in 2014, I think. And from head of outreach, building the outreach team and training them to be better communicators, I guess. I grew into a director of operations role, where I started working with everybody on the team, from ideas all the way to even project management. And with time, that landed me the CEO seat, which is where I'm at today. And my work every day is just empowering the team, really, and just removing obstacles, and continue to show them a future and a way for us to keep growing and keep being excited about what we do, regardless of what happens with Google and in the SEO world and in the world itself. Just trying to enjoy the work. So that's me.
So you typically don't meet people that who were building links during the introduction of the internet in 1998, and then waited a decade to get, well, no, wait, let me do my math. Yeah, a decade to get paid to do so. And then now are pretty much at the top of their game and have grown throughout the company, from being, outreach on the outreach side to running the company. So how has link building really for you changed during that time? What got you into doing links early on during the infancy of the internet? What got you a little bit into marketing? And how would you say that's changed overall, via goals, your approach, different techniques, et cetera, et cetera?
So when I say I started when I was in 1998, that's when I started using the internet. And I think for me, links at the time were just a way of sharing things. And I had at the time, obviously, there wasn't a lot online. There was a lot of searching and finding zero results for things. And I had my own sites that I built when I was like 10 or 11, which was a Queen fan site, because I was a big fan of Queen, the band. And like that, I think I started, getting into communities. At the time, chat rooms and things like IRC or, ICQ were a big thing. And I think I would use my bios to direct people to my sites, and just engaged with links in the way in which I guess they're meant to be engaged with, which is just, portals to places that you want to invite others to come to. And when I actually started in SEO, I started as a freelancer, and I would just basically do whatever I could find as a job. I was based in Argentina, which is where I'm from. And I will get hired to do link building, but then what I was asked to do was, I don't know, like social bookmarks or blog commenting, or things that obviously you're not placing the link because you want people to click it. You're just placing it because you want the link to exist so that Google can see it. And that will give you a bump from an authority point of view. And I remember that after my first, I don't know, it might have been like maybe 2 months of being asked to do that, I had a chat with the person that hired me, and I was like, this is useless. Like, it's just a waste of time, really. Like, have you thought of actually trying to build real links from sites that matter, that are not, you're constantly having to create users to try to put another link in the same bookmark or in the same signature of a forum post. Have you tried to actually get a real user in the forum that makes sense for the business and actually share things that are actionable, answer questions? Like, have you tried doing it because it matters and not just because you are ticking off a box, I guess? And that got me fired, or I guess not rehired, but it did open my eyes to, okay, so I used to do this, and I've been doing this as a user for so long, and this is how people are actually doing it from a marketing point of view. And what's there to market? Like, you're not really marketing anything. And around, a few years after that, we were hit with algorithm changes that showed us the right way. And I was really happy with that, because by that point I was already working with other agencies where actually we were creating content and our clients were getting rewarded because they were doing that. And I think throughout I used to do a lot of work with bloggers when influencers didn't exist, and I guess bloggers were influencers at that time. And the way in which I got into the PR side of things was by, when I was freelancing, the first thing I would do as a consultant was to ask whichever client came to me, have you ever worked with a PR firm? And have they done anything with you? And if they said yes, I would ask, okay, can you just walk me through the type of things that they've done for you? And every time they'd be like, well, yeah, we did a white paper, or, we did an event, a press release. And you're like, okay, let me have a look into that. And then find, okay, all these unlinked brand mentions, which were there for the taking, and be like, right, so let me prepare a landing page. Let's put the white paper on the site, shall we? Let's just create a landing page. Let's go and try to get these unlinked brand mentions, linked. And that's how I got my biggest links at the time. Like, my first Financial Times link came from doing that. So fitting in between SEO and PR, because it was a big gap. And I think that's what digital PR came to, to join and say, right, so there is a space online, and if we are creating a great campaign offline, can we mirror that online? And there have been traditional PR firms doing this for a long time. Now, here in the UK, 10 Yetis come to mind, Radioactive PR comes to mind. There are big PR teams that embrace digital early on, and they didn't wait until right now when everybody else is doing to be like, oh, we need to sell it as a service, kind of thing. And what I do see now is, I do see in certain aspects digital PR going through the same learning curve that SEOs have gone through in terms of link building, and now getting to a point where there's a bit spammy, or there are practices that are quite common that are quite spammy, and they will have to, I think it's a place for SEOs to come and educate before it's too late.
Right. And
hopefully, now that we do have that knowledge as SEOs, we can help and not just wait for things to just, come and explode before we say, oh, actually, you should put the content on the page if you're referencing it. You shouldn't just get homepage links when you're, trying to promote content, and all the things that we do know. Like, if it's not good for user experience, it's just not good for Google. So
it's really, you bring up a couple interesting points. First of all, I got started in link building the same way you did, right? Except for I wasn't a Queen fan, but I was hired by a digital marketing company when I was a little bit older, when I was in college, and this was 98, 99. And my boss, she had me, we worked for a company that, I don't know if you have this in the UK or Argentina, but personal checks. So like people would write checks when they go to pay for something.
Yeah.
And then instead of it being blank, there was like car racing checks and professional wrestling checks and basketball checks.
Wow.
So like what I would do is I would build relationships with all of these different fan sites, GeoCities pages, forum owners, stuff like that, that like targeted like people that were fans of racing or model trains or wrestling, and tell them about the checks, and they would just like link to it or like put it in their navigation. They were so happy that this product existed, or they'd write about it or put it in their forums. And at the time, it wasn't for Google. It was actually pre-Google. The goal was to just get it in front of real people. And things did go downhill with bookmarking and stuff like that. And then also like the birth of social media, to me, there's two things that we're dealing with, maybe three. One is the birth of social media leading to people not blogging as much anymore, yes. Right? It used to be something went viral. It went viral amongst publishers, like micro publishers or influencers, which used to blog, right? Not be on Insta or Facebook or whatever. And then also from I guess from a PR perspective too, I've seen this as well, where first of all, dealing with publications, getting publications to actually link, right? You get someone to pick up your piece or your coverage or whatever. They may even embed your graphic, but not link to you, or they'll list you as a source, but not link to you, because publications now are, it feels like editorial is very incentivized just to keep people within their wall. The problem is that within that wall, also a lot of publications are using, I guess, third-party and non-traditional ways of monetization, such as affiliate links, such as coupon subdomains and things like that, where suddenly, like, even if they do link, it runs through an affiliate program now if your client happens to have one, which kind of, to an extent, depending upon the technology, kills the link, right, from an SEO perspective. And then someone else gets the attribution at the end of the day. So it's trying to really like connect those dots. Yeah. And then also, to your point, yeah, I've experienced the same thing. So I've worked with some clients where they've been like, oh, our PR agency just got us X and Y amount of online pickup. Do you want to see them? And I'll be like, yeah. And I'll look at the list and I'll be like, these are the kind of link vendors that are pitching people day in and day out in emails and online. And the PR agency went and just bought some links. Like, this is not a real publication. Yeah. So it is interesting that you bring that up, because I feel like the SEO link building space has kind of elevated to what we feel digital PR should be, and then PR is adapting, but there is that, how do you scale and how do you do it quickly if you didn't plan accordingly? So you all do a lot of really good, really great content. I was calling it art early on, which was not like, I'm not trying to kiss up to you or anything. Like, I really am impressed by a lot of the work that you put out there at NeoMam. Do you work directly with other PR agencies that some of your clients may come on? Do you work with internal PR teams, or do you like to cover everything yourself? Like, how do you typically balance that? Work well with others, and then also, just cohesively put together a campaign?
So I think we try to set ground rules so we can, in a way, if there is no willingness to support what we do, to try and set boundaries so we don't get in each other's way. Because I think PR teams, if you think about what PR is, it's not the type of content that we make. It could be part of a campaign and a wider message, but normally, or at least our clients' PR teams, they have their own agenda of their own things that they're doing. And if they are trying to push, I don't know, they're a home client and they're trying to push smart home technology from their message, and we say, well, we're going to do a campaign about smart home technology, then they're going to be like, okay, we need to approve everything. We want to approve, we want to approve the idea, the landing page, the design, the colors that you use. We want to approve the pitch. We want to approve the publishers, because we're also reaching out to publishers with similar topics. We don't want your content to be competing against our stuff. And the way we see ourselves is like, well, why don't we just we're bringing something that they're not going to do, that there is a space for. And we try not to get in the way. And if they do want to help us and support the outreach side of things, we just decide, okay, is there a list of sites or that contents that you don't want us to go after, so you do it? Do you want us to do the first round, and then when we're done, we just pass it on to you and just do your round? Do you want to just stick to, is your country yours and we just do the rest of the world? And we just find ways in which we can work together without getting in their way, and also without them getting in our way by wanting to align too much to something that they're already working on. That is not the point, Mm-hmm. And I think when we started perhaps evolving from infographics, which was a thing that we did for a good 5 years of the 10 years of the agency, and we started exploring other formats and going outside of what was happening already from a link building point of view, I guess, that perhaps was already naturally happening on the internet. I think that's when we started realizing, okay, so there's a big space, there's a big hole that perhaps, advertising could fill in. It's this creative side of a brand. It's this playful side of it. That right now online, ads are just happening on your YouTube, and it's just media buying, and it's just the same ad that you see on TV cropped down to just, be fed to you on Twitter. But the internet is different, and people react different to content, and there's a lot more expectations as to what, good content is. That is not just what it's on TV between the thing you like. On TV, the content is the TV show you're watching, and the ad is what happens in the middle. And I think they just grabbed the same concept and they just brought it to the internet. And we were like, well, but no, because we can actually create an experience, and we can be just as playful, and we can create something just as memorable. And we know that doesn't fit with PR. We would still follow guidelines, and we would never just, add a message on top of what the brand actually has as their underlining, message to the world. But we can try to step out a little bit, and just connect with those people that they don't want to be served ads, that they're already blocking them in the first place. So it's like, well, how can I put the brand in front of them in a way in which they will be excited about, and they will want to share it, and they will think, actually, this brand knows what I like. I think that's how we started our new journey after 5 years or so of doing infographics, and also almost losing the agency and having to think, okay, where do we want to go, so yeah, that's what happened to us.
It's really interesting. Like, experiential content marketing is something that, in many ways, could be new, but it also, while you're discussing that, it kind of mirrors the marketing and advertising that a lot of major companies are doing right now. At least, I'm not sure if this is a new thing in the UK or not, but in the US, every city, every town has a mall, right? And it used to be you would go to the mall, and every store would have multiple products in the window, and it'd be buy. People stopped doing that, obviously, because of online e-commerce, right? So now when you go, it feels like most of the major malls and shopping centers over the past 3 or 4 years have been reconstructing everything. So it's experience, it's positive experience and learning with the brand. For example, the Nespresso store that used to just have Nespresso machines and Nespresso pods in the front now has a cafe, right? Yeah. Where you can sit down, sip your Nespresso, try the different things, et cetera, et cetera. The Apple store gives you the ability to go in and test all the products, download apps, et cetera, with no heavy sales. Even Tesla, it's almost like the Tesla store. It's almost like going into a science center, because now children can look at, can play games, and they can look at different things like the energy it takes to power a battery. So basically a lot of the same, it seems like to me, a lot of the same techniques in I guess brick and mortars or real life are starting to replicate museum style experiences and science center style experiences or cafe style experiences that you never forget and you associate positively with the brand. So I was thinking about that when you're talking about the experiences that people can have when they're working with a piece of your content, that they're having a positive experience, whether it's a travel brand or a smart home brand or whatever it may be. It makes them remember the location. Maybe they share something with their family. Oh, you went here? Well, here's a reinvented version of the Coliseum, right? Or something like that, right? So speaking of experiential content and what you've been working on, I've talked a little bit about your campaigns, and we've talked a little bit about like the ability to achieve kind of a higher level of linking. Could you walk our audience through basically a sample campaign, what it existed of, some of the best pickup, or maybe one that you're still getting value from, even though it was a campaign that was launched a year, 2, 3 years ago for a client? Would you mind kind of walking through that from like an example process of how that typically works and what the results have been for you?
Yeah, so I think obviously when we go into ideation as a team, we actually were talking about this yesterday. Even though we get a brief and we all get the same brief, all of us personally have a very different approach to how we start exploring ideas or potential ideas, which is great because we will have somebody who has a more data led approach and who will be asking questions and thinking, how can I use data to answer this question that I keep seeing coming up again and again? And then there will be somebody that would say, okay, what people are talking about right now with this, and how can I create something based on what people are already talking about on Reddit, say. And then there will be people like me who I like visuals and I like showing. I know that there's something beautiful about the eyes and the way that the brain relates to them, where in 3 seconds you can absorb so much information if it's presented properly. So I always look at whatever topic that we are working with and think, okay, is there anything we can visualize? Is there anything that we can teach people in a very seamless, like entertaining way? And I think that's how, when we were working with, we worked with Expedia for a few years, and we started with them, we were doing infographics. So it was all, a lot of practical value content, how do you pack, and, how much you tip, and those type of things that from a travel point of view are super practical. People are searching for them. And we would create really good content around that. But it got to a point where, okay, publishers had the practical angle. That's what they do day in, day out. Now they have a SEO team, so they're actually also targeting the same, how-to keywords that everybody else is. And they're publishers, so they have the authority. So we needed to go somewhere else. And I think that's when we started thinking, okay, well, why do people travel? Like where do they go? And what do travel publishers cover regularly that is not just practical value stuff? It's like, well, they talk about destinations, and they love talking about destinations. And any opportunity for them to talk about destinations again, it's a good opportunity for them because of how they monetize their website, because of what people expect when they go on a site like Travel and Leisure. They expect amazing images of a place that they want to go to. So that's how we landed in our first reconstructed campaign, where we actually were looking at Reddit, and we found this. It was a photo that somebody took of a ruin somewhere in Austria, I think, and in this place, it was like a church that was demolished somehow for some reason, and they had put it was like a transparent plaque that if you were to stand at the right in the right angle, you could see the outlines of what that church used to look like. And then we saw that, and we were like, okay, there's something here. This is really interesting, because we are used to seeing the ruins, and people travel to see ruins for what they look like now and the stories of what they used to be. And Danny, he had his grandma used to have this book in her house where she would have like overlays, and you could see the ruin, and then you had an overlay and you could see the drawing of how it used to look like. We were like, maybe there's something we can do here. Maybe we can show the ruins, but how they used to look like, but in the no modern setting. So if the Colosseum weren't to have, been so old and got destroyed to the point where it is now, what would it look like right now as a tourist? What could you be seeing? And that's how we ended up creating something that continues to get referenced, but also it went beyond travel. So obviously travel publishers love the idea of talking about the ruins that they talk about anyway. They got to talk about the Parthenon, which they do anyway, and show it in a way that was incredibly eye candy, which again is something that they do because they like this wanderlust experience of showing, their readers, it attracts them and they keep wanting to scroll and see the next amazing photo. So it really fulfilled that for them. And also, in a way, it started attracting education links, and then suddenly science sites that would cover history or the technology that we use to create those renders. So then we have design sites that were also covering it, and all of them were talking about it from Expedia's point of view, which was, we all travel to see ruins. We all wonder what they look like. This is a different time in the world, and we're never going to see that. But maybe, you can digitally. And we had the same message across all these different types of publishers. And that's something that every now and again, we will get an email from a teacher saying, oh, would it be possible to get a video version of this? Because I want to show my students.
That's cool.
It's really cool. And we even had, National Geographic, they used them, and sites where you would love to get a link there one day. And maybe if you do some data study, maybe if you get the right journalist at the right time, that they're writing something up already, and you give them something but for them to do an article, on this thing, and it was just the focus of the article was just the ruins, that was huge for us. And like then we had other publishers that, again, is like Smithsonian Magazine, is it? That you can't pitch them, but they have their own really high standards in terms of editorial content. And we just saw the light of, okay, so actually, instead of just doing another guide on how to pack for a holiday or how to get a cheaper flight or how to, perhaps we should start connecting with the reasons why people travel, and how can we talk to them about that, and how can we focus on the traveler, and then basically you just connect with the traveler in every journalist, regardless of publishing vertical, or every blogger, regardless of where they're from, and then they get to cover it because they loved it, because they really connected to it in a personal level. So I think that's an example of a campaign that continue to get referenced, and also that opened the door to other campaigns that have been similar, where we have brought things to life that didn't exist in that format, or existed only in books. And we were like, right, but there's nothing digital. And we know that when people experience content digitally, they're expecting more than just a drawing at this point. They want to see it for real. I think video is a big thing right now, because we are craving that connection. And that's why when we do renderings, it's all about, okay, let's make it real. Let's make somebody look twice and think, wait, what? So that's what you've seen, I guess.
That's a lot. The whole cinematograph component too it's a lot more, I don't want to say easier to do now than it used to be, but everything's there from a tech perspective, from everything else, right? And more. There's a lot more graphic designers that have grown up in this era, as opposed to trying to tell someone from 20 years ago, hey, this is what I want to do. There's kids that are like you were, that you putting up your Queen site on Front Page or GeoCities or whatever, and they're now doing these cool graphics, right? Because they're growing up in this era where, hey, they're like, hey, let me do these graphics for even now for TikTok or whatever. And so how do I put that on the normal web? Another interesting thing about the ruins component is you can do that with almost anything, right? Even I'm looking out, I'm in a hotel right now looking out the window, and it's I'm on a beach town, and there's very little nature around here. It's all buildings and hotels. So the nature that exists, I think, is kind of man-made as well. So like, what would this area originally look like if it was untouched? What would Washington, D.C. look like untouched? What would New York City or London look like untouched, right? Or what would it look like after the apocalypse, when humans go away after 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. So like, all of that is doable from a non-linear perspective as well.
Exactly.
You know, am I looking at the ruins of nature when I see a bird, or when I see some weeds growing through the sidewalk? What would it have looked like if there was none of this here? That's all really interesting stuff. So it sounds like that can be done a lot. And you guys have reimagined old cars and done collaborations and things like that. So it's kind of really interesting to see like that inspiration, even if it came from, did you say Danny's grandmother had a book?
Yeah, so it was, Danny's grandmother had a book and he had been obsessed with it for a long time. I think he had presented versions of that idea before and we were never technically ready for it. And then we saw this Reddit image of somebody taking a photo of this place where there was a church, and how they used just a piece of glass to show an outline. And we were like, well, we could start with showing an outline and then we could fill it up, and by that point, we were already working with our art director, Povilas, and we were already working with architects for other things. So we were like, okay, what if we just talk to an architect and see, can we do this? And then we add a layer of, CG design on top of that. And obviously, these are really complex. It's complex when you want to make them. Even though now the technology is there,
right?
There are a lot of layers to it. If you want to do it historically, like factually correct, and if you're not just imagining, sometimes I see a lot of people call this reimagined. I actually have like 5 different names for it because I see different things in them. So they're not all reimagined, but say these reimagined ideas, I see lots of them that they fall short because the only thought was this and that we reimagine. End of the idea. So I was like, well, you can imagine what would a sofa designed by Tesla look like? Can you do that? Yeah, just something futuristic. And it can go silly if you don't have a reason for it other than I want to make something reimagined, or the most usual one, which is I just want to get some links. I just want to get some links.
Yeah.
And I see that this gets links, so I'm just going to try to get some links with something similar without putting a lot of thought. I think if you're actually thinking, like you were saying, of being curious about the world, and being curious, and also looking at topics that people are discussing and thinking, well, like right now, the heat, what would happen if this heat continues? Like, how would it affect us, and how would it affect our houses? And will our houses change? Will our clothes change? Will our clothes be different? There's so many things you can start thinking about. But I think sometimes people they fall short because they are just thinking, I want to reimagine something, and I add the topic that aligns to my business, and I just put something trendy with it. So something, my business topic, Christmas, reimagine, and it becomes like a bit of a formulaic thing. And then if you do that, and then you add like a lot of like production budget on it, you might get somewhere. But if you do that and then you don't have the production skills as well, then you end up with just like a meh. Okay, they did this for some reason.
Which is a challenge because a lot of businesses, when they see success, the first question is, okay, how do we scale this?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, it's true.
That's where you run into, okay, let's take this great idea and this great piece of content,
let's
turn this into a conveyor belt, type thing. Just keep on pumping them out, and it doesn't always work that way. Speaking of links, real quick, I want to do a shout out to our sponsors, Ahrefs. I'd like to thank Ahrefs for sponsoring the Search Engine Journal show today. Everyone check out their free webmaster tools at ahrefs.com/AWT. One of my favorite tools out there. Typically when I'm going and I'm working on a campaign, I like to look at links coming in from multiple tools, because it gives you an idea of some things that aren't picked up and some things that are. And Ahrefs is one that typically does a lot across the board. So thank you to the team at Ahrefs for sponsoring today. And the next question I have, do you use Ahrefs, Giselle?
Obviously.
Okay, I'm a big fan not only of Ahrefs but also of Tim Solo's marketing. I think he's a marketing genius. Like for a SaaS company, totally.
Yeah,
Like some of the stuff that they put out
things.
there is fun.
I think they changed the way in which we saw tools as well. I think we started expecting a lot more from all the tools that we had and from their own marketing after he took over Ahrefs marketing. So for sure,
And gave it personality as well, right?
yeah.
Which is really cool and something that can be hard to do with a tool set. Speaking of personality and inspiration, a lot of the work that you all have done too is reimagining different locations or settings in a Wes Anderson style format.
Oh, we do
So
that, yeah.
yeah, I'm well, I haven't seen as many Wes Anderson films probably honestly probably in the past decade, but I was an early fan with Bottle Rocket, the Bottle Rocket short, everything else on that side. So besides Wes Anderson, what other inspiration do you typically bring into the pieces that are done by NeoMam?
So when it comes from visuals, I mean, we're all of us all the time just looking at the things that are working on the internet. So there's a lot of Reddit, and just being there and seeing what hits the front page, because that tells us what people like, I guess, or what people want to talk about. So from a point of topics, that's a place that we do go to. Obviously, we also go to the publishers themselves. So again, like I was doing ideation for a bathroom client like a week ago. And my process is I just go to the publishers where I would love us to get to. And I just spend some time and like, well, when they talk about bathrooms, what do they talk about? And personally, because I have a fetish for visual things, I will look at the topics and think, oh, is there anything here we can, visualize? Again, like, is there anything anything we can show that is going to be a feast for the eyes? And like that, I start picking up little things. Obviously, it might be, it might be a toilet. It wasn't. But thinking, okay, what is it about a bathroom that we can show? So I think looking at publishers is gold. In terms of visuals themselves, when it comes to data visualization, we love Visual Capitalist. So visualcapitalist.com, if you've not been, their team is just beyond incredible when it comes to static visualizations, which we prefer as well. We do interactive content, but there's something about a visual that is just the one image that you can lose yourself to. So Visual Capitalist is a big one. Pudding.co, they are an amazing team. Yeah, so it's the Pudding. So I think it's pudding.cool, COOL, I think. And they're a team of content creators. They work with data. They explore topics that they are interested in. And they release pieces sporadically, maybe once a month. They release a big project. They are fantastic as well, and they are an inspiration to us for sure. And then, I mean, we just follow, like you were saying, Behance, there's so many amazing creators, and we try to work with them. So we don't just go and see what they're doing and then we steal it, and then we just pretend that we didn't see what they did. We actually try to work with them directly, and if not, we do reference them. We always try to lift them up. So,
nice.
You'll see in many of the projects that we've done, you'll see when we do specifically mention a particular person, it's because that was a creator that we worked with directly, and it wasn't just our in-house team doing it. So that also teaches us a lot. We learn a lot from the artists that we get to work with. And I think there's a lot of accounts that share like digital PR campaigns. We do follow them, have a look at them. But obviously, personally, it's not obvious, but personally, I don't like to just focus too much on what other people are doing. Just because I think that sometimes that's when you end up in the situation of like, oh, it worked, I have to make it work. And it puts you off your own journey when you start doing that, and then suddenly, you try many things because you saw them work, but you don't quite understand them yet. So I like for us to get to things that we get to in our own terms, in a way. But we do definitely have a look at content created by other teams, whether they are agencies or in-house teams or journalistic teams, so like publishers, which is why we have our jealousy list where we share the stuff that we wish we had made. We didn't, but
two of the phenomenons that really excite me. One is, like you said, like Behance, right? And I love the ability to like go and commission artists that have done really neat stuff. Like when you see someone just putting it out there, maybe they're reimagining like NFL helmets or whatever, or something like that, right? I'm like, wow, this would be great for our sports client. Let me see what else they can do, and let me see what other ideas they can have. And it's kind of cool because I feel like they're putting that out there for a reason. And then like when you actually commission the artist to do something, you're really helping them out. And then the one phenomenon that I haven't been able to tap into as much is like I have some friends that are podcasters, and well, like I don't know, we're doing a podcast, but they're like personal podcasters, and they have a following, and people will send them fan art all the time, right?
Yeah.
So they're sharing their fan art, and some of the fan art that they're sharing is just like phenomenal. I'm like, oh wow, like your fans that listen to you or watch you are putting this together for you to share. So they're basically just contributing great content. Like, how do you replicate that from like a marketing or business perspective, right? So it's some of those awesome like natural phenomenons to bring in, and not completely commercialize, but like how do we bring that into the world of online marketing? I want to get a little bit into you had mentioned like lifting people up. I want to get into that a little bit, but first we're going to run an ad roll from our sponsor Ahrefs. So hold on 1 minute, and Christina, let's do the ad roll.
Today's episode of the Search Engine Journal Show is brought to you by our good friends at Ahrefs. And today I'd like to tell you a little bit about Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. Ahrefs Webmaster Tools is a free resource. Again, that's free. You don't even need a credit card to sign up, where you can monitor your SEO site health, know your backlinks, not just check your backlinks, but know your backlinks, then also see keywords that are bringing you traffic to your site. This gives you a better understanding of your website's SEO potential with the help of actionable SEO metrics, such as search volume, keyword difficulty, and traffic value. Just go to ahrefs.com. Again, it's ahrefs.com/AWT to give Ahrefs Webmaster Tools a spin. Again, just go to ahrefs.com/AWT to check out Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free. Thank you so much, and back to our show.
Hey, look at that! I'm wearing the same shirt. I didn't even notice it. I didn't notice it when the ad roll started. Like, this was at the top. This is like one of the. I'm traveling right now. This is one of the only clean shirts I had. It just happened to be the same one in the ad roll. It's amazing. Looks so professional at the end of the day.
You only have that. We don't know. Maybe that's your only t-shirt.
Like Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, I'm a huge New Zealand fan, so I have like a whole like bag full of them. So you talked about lifting up artists and creators. And then another thing that I've noticed, especially in your Twitter and then on the NeoMam blog and everything else, is you actually lift up other practitioners of digital PR, including other agencies, right? So, and really shining a light on those companies, individuals that work for their clients, et cetera, which is something a lot of other agencies or consultants may not be as apt to doing, and there's been quite a positive response. So could you go into that a little bit? Like, what motivates you to share other people's work? What motivates you to shine a light on that work, et cetera, et cetera?
So I guess it's the same thing that perhaps connects to what you were saying of, well, we can't just market this content that's being created with love that your friends who have podcasts receive. We can't replicate that. It's really hard to replicate that. And I agree. And I think it's very hard, particularly when you don't really have that same love. But when you do, then you appreciate things for for what they are and not for who made them. And what would it mean if I were to share this? Would it make me bad because it's not mine? Would it make them better than me because they made it? And I think last year, with everything that happened, content kept us going. And our love for what we do and for our content, personally as an agency, it kept all of us just not giving up at a time where, we have team members in different countries that have been in lockdown throughout, or that actually they still right now, they're not having vaccinations because they don't have vaccinations yet. And it's hard. And I think because we love what we do so much, we particularly enjoyed our own work. And then when we see work created by others, that brought us joy as well. And I think it always has been the case of, there's agencies there's an agency in the UK called Verb Search, and they have inspired me so much. And their team, they're just nice people and they're super talented. And they you can see the love in the content. And I think when I first noticed that many years ago, and I first saw a campaign from them that was, I think it was Extinct Animals. It was an Expedia campaign, actually, Expedia UK campaign, where they did posters of animals that are extinct that we are not going to be able to see anymore. And it was beautiful art, and you could tell that they cared. And that really changed my perception of what are we here to do and why do I do this? And I think that's what, it just removed all the competition from it. Like, I think if we all were to create amazing content that we all cared about, that we're just not doing just for the quick link or, just to spend the budget we said we were going to spend, I think the internet would be a better place. I think we would all be more fulfilled and more creatively challenged. And building a list of projects that we wish we would have made wasn't hard. Like, all I did was send an email to the team and say, hey guys, have you seen anything this year that you saw and you thought, I wish we made that? And everybody contributed. And it wasn't just agencies, there were content creators, there were journalists, there was a mix of people who have put out amazing work, and we weren't shy of saying who they were. And actually, when it comes from agencies, like, we have agencies who have sent us gifts and stuff because they landed clients because of the work that we put on our side that said they made that. And that's amazing. Like, it just, if anything, it made us happy. It's amazing to be able to say, hey, there's so many great teams doing good work. And sometimes perhaps many of them, they're not that loud and they don't get celebrated because maybe they're really busy and they don't celebrate themselves. So let's just do it ourselves. Let's just celebrate them. And it's something that I definitely want to keep doing. And it's not just, it didn't come from my brain only. It's just talking to Danny and talking to Barnes and thinking, okay, should we do this? Should we create this list, and should we make it an annual fixture? Which it made us go through this year in a different way, because now we look at content, we're like, oh, that's a great one for the jealousy list. So it also took the pain away of seeing something that we didn't make, if there is any, because that's why it's called jealousy list, because you do feel like, oh, I wish I could come up with an idea. But now it's like, oh, I wish I could come up with an idea. Great. That's going to be great for the jealousy list. So it turned it into something different as well. So that's really good.
Instead of feeling empty because you did not have that idea and someone had it, or maybe someone did something a little bit different or better than maybe you have done, instead of feeling empty about it, right, it kind of gives you the ability to get excited and to motivate and to maybe do more or do better or do something different. And at the same time, you bring up a really good point, like SEJ, and then also on the agency side, we're very international. Like, we have people all over the world, and it has been, the past year has been interesting because of like the differences between country and country and country, right? So like, things were not looking good a year ago in the US at all. And then we have vaccines out, but then I have a lot of team members who haven't had the chance to get vaccinated yet, depending upon where they live. A lot are traveling to other countries or other regions to get vaccinated as well. And it's not just the ability to do something fun together at the same time, but it's also the ability to understand the struggles that everyone else is going through at once as well, that is different than yours, right? And add a little bit of empathy and community to it at the end of the day too. So thanks for bringing that up. Especially now with all of these new lockdowns coming into place, it's really
the funny thing is in the UK it's the opposite. So like here it's actually, you know, Freedom Day they called it. No more masks, you know. It's politics are interesting.
Yeah, we tried that in California about a month ago. It didn't work. Now everybody has.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. But
yeah. So great. So thank you so much. Thanks again for jumping on today. Is there anything that you'd like to share before we sign off to our audiences out there?
I don't know. No, I don't really do events or things like that, so I don't have like things lined up. I do try to share things that inspire me on Twitter. I do share a lot of content. I consume a lot of content. So if anybody's interested in that, like following me on Twitter is always a good thing, and it's at Gisele, so ICHBINGISELE. And if I were to do something and talk at some place, I would probably just put it there, but I don't do a lot of this stuff. So I really appreciate you inviting me. It's amazing to meet you. And I know now I'm telling this to the rest of the world, but I'm so glad that you are as nice as I thought you were, because it would have been such a bummer if you weren't the Loren that I thought you were. So it's been awesome talking to you, and thank you for everything you have done for all of us just by creating Search Engine Journal and just creating these spaces for us to talk and learn from each other. So yeah, just that.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you very much. Yeah, one thing I love about doing like these shows and stuff like that is that when I originally started SEJ, my idea was, as I was kind of relearning search, to share what I was relearning and then also build a publication by doing so, right? So like now with the videos, it really gives me a chance to like sit down and personally learn from each guest that I have on, and then share that at the same time without having to sit down and type everything. So it's kind of nice. I do have one question for you before we sign off.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations to Argentina for winning the let me get this right. Cupo Americano, right, this year, right?
Like Copa America.
Cupo Latino. Oh, okay, Cupo Americano, right? And then at the same time, I think in the same week that Argentina won the American Cup or Latin American Cup, whichever, against Brazil, the country that you live in right now also had a game. How did that go?
Yeah.
What was that like? What was that like being in England and having the balance, the two emotions at once?
Well, I think I was really happy, and I woke up that day. The match with Argentina was at 2 a.m., so it was really early. I woke up, I was so happy. My kids were happy. My husband was happy, and it was like, okay, so now England wins, and then we have it all. And that didn't happen, and that it did dampen in a way the win from Argentina, because obviously I couldn't just go and celebrate as much as I probably would have. And not say anything to anybody, and particularly because starting the next day, nobody was ever talking ever about the match ever again. So I couldn't be like, and we won, by the way. So I didn't really get to celebrate a lot. But I think one thing that I'm talking to friends, and I mentioned this to you earlier, I find that it's strange how much English fans will foresee that they're going to win, and then they don't win, and then that really hurts their soul. So I would say for next time, just take it as it comes, like enjoy the game as it comes. And if you win, that's amazing. And if you didn't, it's what happens. But it just broke my heart to see, even my husband, he was listening to the songs like It's Coming Home, like all morning, just getting so ready. And then he didn't come home, and it was just the worst thing that happened to him. So yeah, that's something we talked about at home. Like next time, we're not going to be listening to It's Coming Home 10 times in a day. No. But yeah.
Exactly. And one reason I bring that up is because I do feel it's very important to celebrate wins. Whether it's the win of Argentina's win, whether it's England making it all the way to the end of the European Cup, which is not expected, right?
Yes.
And then losing to a great team, and then also wins that you have on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis from an internet marketing perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to get caught up to be like, I remember when really early on when I first started consulting or agency stuff, like sometimes if I signed a specific client, it was like we were going out and partying. It was like it's like, yes, we're gonna be the biggest, best agency. This is amazing. And like you get this link here, like, yes, let's go, But now it's just like, okay, so
yeah,
it is important to celebrate those wins, especially when we're all working virtually or semi-virtually or whatever. So congratulations on everything that you've done at NeoMam. It's been a pleasure hosting you today, and let's continue to celebrate those wins.
Yes, thank you so much, and you're very right.
All right, great. So this is Loren Baker with SEJ and Gisele Navarro of NeoMam. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in this morning. And Giselle, thank you again. And thanks to our sponsors at Ahrefs as well for making today's podcast possible. See you later.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.